So although the vehicle's off right now, if your gear selector was showing that oftentimes every possible gear selection was selected, so circles around the PR and D and general abnormal shifting characteristics, oftentimes the Jeep Grand Cherokees, from what I've read through internet reviews, are notorious for failure of this electronic shift module. And on various Jeep forums there is written descriptions on how to go about cleaning and replacing. However, I've yet to see a video on the subject, so we're going to try to make one. And if this is able to help a few folks out, that's great. We've chocked the wheels, and now the emergency brake is set. I'm going to put the ignition in the on position, so I can then move the gear selector to the reverse position so the post is straight up and down. To remove the shift knob, we're going to rotate the bottom chrome piece here counterclockwise, and then with a little force the shift knob should pull right off. And that just comes off like that. We're going to toss that aside, and the chrome fastener comes off as well. So the next thing we're going to do is take off this chrome trim ring right here, and in most cases all you need is just your fingernails to get underneath here. And that's going to pull right off. And next we're going to remove the cup holders in the console. So we're going to pull the cup holder piece out with a little encouragement. Again, that just has some press fit snaps on it, and that just pulls right off. So I'm going to set that in the passenger seat as well. The next piece is the plastic trim around the electronic shift module, and if you grip it in your coin collector out here and just give it a little bit of a pull, that's going to snap right out as well. So once again, just kind of work slowly and carefully and see if we can pull that rubber mat up. Out it comes, and then we reveal two fastening screws for the shift module right here that we're gonna remove. All right, now that your screws are out, again, if you have a two-wheel drive model and you don't have this piece right here for the four-wheel low selector, your connector for the ESM is right down here. So what you'd do if you were just replacing the module in this case is pull this connection out, and then you could remove your module piece right out of here, drop a new one in, reconnect the connector, negative battery terminal, and reassemble what we just did, and you're pretty much done. What we're going to be doing, because we have a four-wheel drive model, we have to remove this whole console piece, which we'll get to in a moment, and remove the four-wheel drive low selector out of the way as well before we can pull this module off. And then we're going to attempt to clean the module circuit board underneath there. So again, if you're just replacing the module itself, you could do that now. After we remove this console for the four-wheel drive folks like ourselves here, again, you could just replace the module at that point and then reassemble everything. But we're going to go all the way and try to save some money here and clean our circuit board. Alright, there's a bit of sunlight coming in the windshield here, so I apologize for the if it gets a little bit hazy. But just to show you the screws where this is going to come out, one is located right by the seatbelt fastener here, but there's another one right in behind here, and again likewise on this side as well. And then we're gonna have to remove this back piece off the console, and there's a couple screws down here as well to remove, and then we're gonna have to pull this console right out. So we'll get to that next. So we removed the back of the console, which just pulls off. And now we're going to have to remove these final two bolts right here in order to get the console out. So we've removed the two bolts from the bracket down here. Now we're just going to gently lift the console off. So the console is removed, and this is what lies beneath. So now we have a lot more access to the shift module itself, and for our heating system, we're just gonna, this just pops out as well. Now with all that out of the way, we have access to the two screws that hold this four-wheel drive low selector under here. So we can get that out, and then we can pull the ESM off. Alright, so with our two screws removed from underneath this four-wheel low selector, you can see that this is now loose to move around. So we're going to disconnect its wire harness down here and just pull it right out. So again, we're just going to gently bring that out. Now we can take this out, set it aside, and disconnect our ESM next. Again, just pull it out. With a little gentle wiggling, we're going to pull this right off. And at this point we're going to pull this ESM unit out of the vehicle, bring it in the house, and see if we can strip this down, take a look at the circuit board, clean it off, and then we'll reinstall everything. So again, for the four-wheel drive crowd, if you decided you don't want to try to clean this module, you're just going to replace it, you can pick this part up, I believe between $300 and $700 were the prices I saw listed, and reinstall this at this point, and then reassemble everything, and you're done at this point. But again, we're going to try to save a little money, because I've done this before and it has worked, and show you how to clean the gaps on the circuit board in here. With the top cover removed, now we're down to these snaps on each side. So we're just going to pry those open gently using a flathead screwdriver, and we'll be down to the circuit board. So with that screw removed, now we're just going to gently take this off. And this is the part that causes all the trouble. So if you examine these tracks and you see where the gaps are on this circuit board, you'll notice there's typically much streaking, and it's graphite streaking between these gaps that causes the error information to be sent to your vehicle's transmission control computer. So what we're going to do is take a Q-tip with some electrical contact cleaner, clean these gaps off so there's no graphite streaking. Then we're going to reassemble everything the way we took it apart, put it back in the vehicle, and with any luck it should work good as new. And continue this process until you don't see any more little parallel lines of graphite that run between these gaps. And once it's all clean, reassemble it. Some people end up scrubbing this whole board. From what I've read, this isn't necessary, so I've just been cleaning the gaps itself. But if you want to be ambitious and take the time and clean this whole board, that's probably okay as well. Now that we have the circuit board assembly back together, we're going to unite that with its cover. So notice you have this illumination bar on here. It should line up in this orientation when you go to put them back together. And for these, you're just looking to reconnect those plastic fasteners. So just gentle force when you put these back together. Take your time, don't force anything, because we don't want to ruin that light bar or damage any of the circuitry on here as we gently put these back together. So just to note, as we're putting these back together, you have to open up the end pieces in order to feed the belt down through first. Once you've got those on both sides, then you can gently push this down to connect these fasteners together. So now that this is back together, make sure that your light bar is in place, and this will, as you lift it off, that'll feed down. Make sure that we don't lose this little center piece that covers the gear stick. And then we're going to align those together in that manner and join those two. And then there'll be two screws again that go in underneath for this one after we get the plastic fasteners on. And we've got that back together. Now we're going to reinstall the two screws that go in the corners. One right there, and the other, which is difficult to see for the hole, but right there. And the other side just snaps in there and there. There's no screws on that side. So if you've got everything reassembled, with any luck everything went back together well. Just check to make sure that your belt moves smoothly. And now we're ready to reattach this back in the vehicle. So make sure that your belt and plastic guide in here are lined up with the spacers. And then you can drop this right down onto its mount where it was before. Make sure that the ends of your belt are out of the way. With our ESM back in place, we can go ahead and reconnect the switch here. And I'm going to put back in the four-wheel drive selector, and then we can reconnect that harness into it as well. With the screws installed, we'll now reconnect the four-wheel drive low selector. And again, there's two screws that further fasten the ESM in place there, so we'll reinstall those next. So at this point, we've reconnected everything electrical that we're going to, so we can go ahead and put the vehicle back in park, because we're going to need to reconnect the negative battery terminal in order to move our seat back and forth, so we can get this console back and cover up this mess. Now if you want to test what you've done, you can take the vehicle for a drive right now without reinstalling the console. In the event that what you didn't work, and we're going to have to go ahead and shell out the $400 or $500 or whatever the local parts store is charging for these now, to put that in before you put the console back in. So you'd be able to drive this there now and save yourself some time in getting that console in and out again. So we're going to go ahead and reconnect our negative battery terminal and then reinstall this console. Before we can install our console, we have to put this piece of heating duct back in. I'm going to see if I can snake that back around in here. And we can reinstall our little rubber tray to cover up those bolt holes. And we'll reinstall our shift knob as well. So I'll drop that on, and the plastic knob. And this has an upwards angle to it, so just play with your orientation to make sure that you've got it right. Which that is not. There it is. Now that's on firmly, and with the key in the ignition, you can make sure everything moves smoothly, which it does, and then we can put in our console. Now with the console back in place, there's two screws that have to be reinserted in here. Then you're going to find this back plate, drop that back in, and that's just going to be a snap-in piece. So next goes on our cup holders, opposite way. And then our first bit of plastic trim. Snaps down into place. And the chrome ring trim. And underneath this, there's actually labeled front on here, so you know how to the orientation of it. And it snaps down. And now we're done.